to Roy on Rescue, I've had two different occasions within about a week where someone has had an emergency, or not a life-threatening emergency necessarily, but there was a laceration, and ironically they happened to both be on their eyebrow, where it was sliced open and they didn't want to go in for stitches. And the question was, do I have to go in for stitches, or is this something that I can just put a Band-Aid on and will be a-okay? So I wanted to just touch on this because I think it's probably something that's fairly common. We're getting into the spring and summer months, which means we're probably going to have slips, trips, falls, camping accidents, sports things, you name it, stepping on sharp objects in the swimming area. So it's probably a good idea to cover this. Now, the good rule of thumb is that anytime you have a doubt, a question of a doubt as to whether or not it's serious enough to go into the hospital or the MedCenter, it's always a great idea to follow that thing that's God-given called the sixth sense. It's your gut feeling. My gut tells me we should probably go into the hospital. You should probably go into the hospital. Now, there is another rule of thumb though when it comes to lacerations to know when it's probably going to need stitches, steri-strips, or medical grade super glue. That is, if the wound is smiling at you, or otherwise known as the fish mouth. Edges of the wound are not able to stay together on their own, meaning that the wound is gaping open. This causes a couple different problems. One is that it doesn't heal very easily. It can build a lot of scar tissue, and it tends to break open more frequently. The idea here is to get those edges closed together so that it can heal correctly. Now, one of the things that need to be kept in mind is that we need to make sure there's no bacteria being trapped inside the wound before we close the wound. So irrigating the wound, cleaning it out, making sure there's triple antibiotic or some other type of antiseptic in the wound and around the wound is a great idea so that we can combat that potential for infection. And then even if we do decide to steri-strip it ourselves at home or some other way of keeping it closed, it's a good idea to watch for signs of infection, which include redness, swelling, oozing, pus, things like that. If you see that, get into your medical professional right away to get the infection treated. There's three different things that usually are done. One is steri-strips. That can be done at home. The other is stitches. Obviously is going to be done at a MedCenter or a hospital. And then the other one is medical grade glue, which is also usually done at the hospital or the MedCenter. Although you would not believe how many different kinds of people on how many different kinds of construction sites I've seen find this stuff, and I don't know where they get it from. The thing of it is that if you're going to do your own treatment, you have to realize you're going to be taking a certain amount of responsibility for complications. So if you don't want to have any potential for complications that might end up being your fault, you're going to want to defer to a medical professional who's trained and licensed to be able to do that type of proper procedure. However, if you're in a position out in the wild, you're out camping, you're out away, you're not able to get away, you're not able to get to a MedCenter or hospital, and you want the wound to heal as best as possible, you can get steri-strips at most pharmacies and most general all-purpose stores that carry basic bandage, basic first aid supplies. And there's a lot of tips on how to use a steri-strip, but you basically pinch the edges together after you've cleaned the wound, disinfected it, and used a triple antibiotic of some sort, usually, or an antiseptic. And then as you grab the wound sides, or not grab them, but pinch them together, you're going to actually then connect the steri-strips from one side to the other, smooth them over so that it's all closed from end to end. And you allow usually the steri-strips to wear off. By the time they wear off, the wound is normally mended back together. The scar is minimized. I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at RoyOnRescue@gmail.com. Keep the questions coming, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.